Alright, I'm doing this video for some of the guys that were asking to make a video of how the mower was built. So this is my new build from a couple years ago. We've had it stored away now since last year. I think our last race was roughly in August for me anyways. I don't do too many races anymore. I'll go over the engine first. It's a fully built Kohler engine, V-twin. It's been bored up. It's obviously got the big heavy duty valve springs and it's got the roller rocker top end. And then we got billet pistons in it. And then we got billet rods in it. And then we just running a regular stock crank, which is balanced. I did notice a significant change once we did balance the crank, so that is a mod you should do. Alright, and then we're running Mikuni carbs on it, just slide carbs on it. I've jetted them myself to run alcohol. We're running a billet flywheel on it, and that's pretty much it. Obviously, we build our own exhaust manifold, and then we got our EGT temp sensors on there, so for tuning wise we have to make sure we don't go over a certain temperature depending on the day. Normally once we set it, it's pretty well good to go for the season. We don't really have to jet it. I like the Mikunis because they're easy to set, and it's just set it and forget it, I call it. All right, and then we're running a bully clutch, 4-disc clutch on it, 1 1/8, so it's kind of a special one and hard to get. I would recommend getting just a 1-inch crank one, but this happened to have a 1 1/8, and I had a 1 1/8 bully, so that's the way we went with it. And then we run with a 510 chain to the back, big sprocket, and then we cross over in the middle of the chassis roughly. We cross over and we go to the rear axle. As you can see, we're doing some maintenance on it. There's some bolts missing, as you can see there. And then in the back, you can see how our axle is mounted to the frame. And then we got our fuel tank on the back. And then we have our brake on the other side. If I were to do the rear axle again, I would probably, as you can see, the chain is pretty close to the tire. I would have, if I knew this, or should have knew this, then I would have put it closer to the inside, because now I'm pretty well limited as to where I can put my tires, which is, yeah, it's unfortunate, but it seems to handle the way it is. And then for brake wise, we just got one hydraulic, and then we run it to a splitter. Or sorry, we're not running it to a splitter, my bad. We got one going to the rear, and then we got one going to a proportioning valve, which we use as for the front brakes. So we have front brakes on this, and we can adjust these while we're running on the track, which seems to be a little tough when you are running on the track, because it seems to be tough to turn sometimes. But if you have a sticky track, we like to run a lot of front brakes. If we have a pretty loose track, then we try to get away from using the front brakes as well as much as possible. And then this proportioning valve works great with that. So here's the front brake setup on it. All these parts I've just kind of accumulated over the years, found them used here and there, and then just once I got everything, I just built this machine completely. And then we got our throttle setup. It's a pretty simple throttle setup, as you can see. We just got the wire going there and then into the carbs. One thing I do recommend, for I see a lot of guys that don't use it, but if you can make a heavy duty throttle stop, I would highly recommend it, because you'd be surprised how much force you put on that throttle pedal, because yeah, you want to go first. And then we got bead locks on the front. It was just, that's, in my opinion, it's unnecessary, but I got the rims for a good deal, so I couldn't pass them up. The rear is just a regular rim. And then on this side, we do have the bead lock. It does seem to help a little bit because I had a lot of stress on this tire going through the corners. And then let me think what I can show else. And then we got a little no neat handle. It was just something I made because I kind of based this tractor off a 1066 tractor. So, and then if you know the 1066 tractors, they have the high-low here, so that's why I kind of went with that. Steering wise, you can see how we made it. We just run in a knuckle, and then I made a double bearing end on both ends. I made them myself. I just used to put bearings in there, and it's as tight as you can get it. And then we run over to this side. It's kind of tough to see on this one because I have built it pretty close together. So, and then the steering rod just goes down. Oh, let me see if I can get in there. You can kind of see it. And then you can see it just kind of turns, and then the push, it's like a push-pull kind of underneath there. Instead of going over the engine, because as you can see, it's nice now. You could pull the valve covers off and check all your valve clearances and stuff without having to have this big rods going across and not having to be able to pull the valve covers or something. Or if you had to pull the engine, it's just a matter of unbolting it and pulling it out. So that is definitely a thing I'm happy I did. And then just, you got your steering wheel here, and then we made this little dial logger on it. So when we're running, we can check it. Obviously, just seeing now, it did move on me. I had it roughly over here, so I can see it while I was running down the track if I had any issues with it. But if you're in the heat of the moment, you don't really look at it anyways. And then front axle white, we used a tube chromoly front axle. I had Brian Kerr here in Petrolia, he lives close by, so I just had him bend one up instead of me bothering to make one. And then we made the plates ourselves and put the iron joints in it. And as you can see, we can adjust these whenever we want. You turn these, it goes up or down, whichever way you turn it. It does work nice, but you definitely have to keep an eye on it because they do seem to move a little bit from time to time. Because I had these set equal, and as you can see, they have gone off a little bit, and I don't remember adjusting them. I might have, but never know. Sometimes we get things. So, and then you can kind of see how we mount it. I'll see if I can get a better picture of this. You can see we're just right on the front of the frame. We put our front axle. We build our bumper on the front of it. And then frame wise, it is a regular it's actually a John Deere 160 frame. It's just been completely got it to the bare metal, the frame. That's all there is. And then there's just a piece of tube going to the front. It's not all the way through, just to get a little bit more, keep the stress out of it, because you don't want to run too solid of a machine, especially if you get into a real sticky track. You tend to start hopping. You get the hopping in the machine. That means you don't have enough flex, but too much flex is also not good. But you want to have like a happy medium where it handles good in the loose conditions, but it also handles good in the sticky conditions. So, and then I think we've pretty well hit it with this machine. I think in any track we're doing well for us anyways. And then you can kind of see there's just a tube that goes across on the rear of the frame, and then that's how we mounted our bumper. And then the bumper, as you can see, we kind of go through, and then we put it back down to the frame over there, over the axle, to give the rear of the frame a tad bit more structure for any twisting motions back here, because obviously this is where it takes most of the power. And then this is just something we put in. We actually, because there was barely any support in here, so instead of making a goofy setup for your seat, we actually put this bar in here. So the only place that it bolts on the seat is back here, as you can see the two, and then the front seat just rests on here, and it is pretty sturdy. You don't really notice the seat move at all in it. I'm also a pretty light guy, I only weigh 180 pounds, so, but I am pretty tall, so that's why we do have the long base frame in it, just to get rid of my legs. And as you can see, just trying to see if there's anything else I could tell you guys that would help you out. Yep, I think that's pretty well it. Yep, we're running a chromoly 1 1/4 axle on the rear. I wouldn't recommend anything less than that in these classes. You're running such high horsepower. You're gonna put that on a 1-inch. You're gonna be replacing axles all the time. And also in the crossover axle, we're doing the same thing. We got the 1 1/8 or 1 1/4 axle in there. It is a thicker tube one. I had it laying around. It doesn't matter if it is or not. That's up to you. And then we're using pulleys for our tensioning. It is a lot nicer. I think then the chain can do its thing in here and not be forced one way or the other. And that's why we went with the pulley. It tightens up. And as you can see, we have that's where the bolt is back there. It's kind of an odd, tough spot, but you know what, if you have everything right, you're never really messing with the tensioning that often. And especially with these big chains, they don't really stretch anymore. That's the nice thing about it, running a fatter chain on them. You don't really have the stretch and the crap of replacing chains all the time. So, and as you can see back here, we used the pulley also. I used aluminum. I had it laying around. I think it was maybe used for like a belt or something at one point, but it seems to serve its purpose, and we haven't had any chain issues. So that's pretty well it for this machine. I think I tried to show as much as I could for you guys. And then we're just getting it ready. I wasn't gonna pull it out for this season. I might have pulled it out for maybe one race, but we got invited to race in the US. We're in Canada here, but we're about half an hour from the border. So then we got invited to run in Michigan here. So we said, well, let's do it. I've never raced against the American boys, so I think it's time we're gonna see what we can do. No promises, but you can follow us. Maybe we'll throw a GoPro on her and see what we can do. I'll have to see if I can find a GoPro, because I don't think I even have one. All right, guys, and that's it. Yep, there's another mower that my father-in-law built. It's his very first built, and it's very nice. So if you guys have any more questions, don't be afraid to ask. I'm sure I can help answer some of them. I'm not the smartest guy for the racing, but I try to help as much as I can the guys. So, all right, see you guys.